Hello and welcome to another episode of the Strength Syndicate Podcast with myself, Shane Story, and my co-host as ever, Lawrence King. So today we are joined by the glue that's holding most of Irish powerlifting together. We're joined today by TJ Paying Free or Tristan Jacobs. How are you getting on, Tristan?
All good now. I can't complain, thank God.
Are you still in one piece?
I am. Yeah.
Good. Anyway, thanks very much for coming on to the podcast today, TJ. So obviously there's always going to be people listening to podcasts who don't necessarily know who you are. So could we get started off with your background, like what qualifications you have, who are you, what got you into lifting, that kind of thing?
So my physical therapy qualification is neuromuscular physical therapy. I suppose the funny thing about that is I don't use any of that in what I do, because what I was taught when I was first doing it was it's all based on soft tissue work, which is something I'm not overly a fan of in terms of the way I practice or the way I treat injuries. So that's the qualification. The best thing about that course, I suppose, was their level of anatomy, which I think is, I suppose, any physical therapist, if you don't have a decent knowledge of anatomy, you're at a loss at the start, to be honest. So yeah, originally I would have done personal training and fitness and that kind of stuff. I would have had a gym with two others here in Galway for a couple of years. And one of the partners was a powerlifting coach. So I messed around in the gym a bit, but never really done anything structured. So that's when I started thinking, Jesus, powerlifting looks cool. Started that. It was okay for 2 years, but then I signed up with Abs and with Dav, and that's been now nearly 3 years now, when I'm actually properly putting a bit of effort into it and actually enjoying it more. I suppose the coaching I was getting was because it was a kind of friend and partner. I don't think it was as structured as paying someone and being properly accountable. So now it's much more in depth than I probably had before. So I just love I love it. It keeps me mentally sane, I suppose, more than physically. What led me from the PT into this was that, I suppose, doing PT and gym and stuff, you get people ringing, canceling because they were injured, or, this is sore. They come into doing a session and be like, oh, when I do that, this hurts. When I do that, this hurts. And like, oh, fuck. Let's try this and try not to sound like you're having a breeze, but trying to work around it. And then I suppose I thought, well, I mean, if I can also help these people or have a better understanding of what's going on, then I can be almost, in inverted commas, a one-stop shop, where I can help them get fitter, stronger, leaner, whatever the case is. And then if we have a hiccup along the way, I can then help them through that too. So stop, I suppose, in terms of money, it was retaining business, not sending them elsewhere to get fixed and potentially go to someone who hasn't a clue and tells them they can't train for 6 months. I suppose that's kind of what led me to where I am now. And then I have much more of a passion for this than I do for coaching and PT. So I kind of stopped that then. I do have a very small handful of coaching clients, but it's not something I advertise as a service as such. A lot of them would mainly be because of continual issues from maybe a pain or a restriction situation. So I program alongside either their coach or strictly by myself, to work around their efforts and their issues, and I suppose get them back to a place where they can either leave me and go just to full-time coaching or someone who specializes in it, because my job then is kind of done.
Of course, yeah. I suppose, TJ, maybe from you mentioned something there earlier on that me and Shane would be quite I suppose anti-passive recovery modality, or anti. So, and you'd be in this camp as well, but kind of, can you briefly explain to people why you're kind of, and I like, look, for us, like, we're already the awake, we are the enlightened. So to people maybe listening to why these passive, maybe explain what a passive modality is, and maybe can you go through a little bit on your thought process why we might favor towards a more exercise-based recovery modality, or kind of injury, what's the word I'm looking for? Injury prevention or perspective. Okay.
I suppose there's two main factors that I won't go negative and say I'm anti it, right? But what I will say is that there's two things. There's one is it doesn't do what people think it does. Okay. And secondly, my main factor with it, and this is where people that use a lot don't like me, is that it creates a reliance. It creates a crutch for people. So how many times you heard someone, oh, I'm going for my monthly sports massage or my weekly massage or my weekly cupping or my monthly cupping. That's great because the person doing it, they're happy as Larry because that's their business. They're making money out of it because you keep coming back. Whereas if you went to them and they explained to you why you're feeling this tightness, I'm using inverted commas, and these issues, and they give you a movement or an understanding of how to physically yourself stop it happening, you won't come back to them anymore because your job is done. So the problem is, and that's where my business model, I suppose, varies, is I'm looking for new blood all the time. I don't get repeat. And that's not trying to be big-headed, because if my plan and my approach with you works, you don't come back to me. And that's my goal. I don't want to see you again. And that's where I try to explain to people in the most honest thing is, my thing is I want to see you as little as possible or as few times as possible, or work with you as short as possible. Because firstly, you get back to where you need to be as quick as possible, and you're not relying on anyone else except yourself now. So whereas if you're relying on me to be available to rub your quads every week, because if you can't squat, we have a problem from the start. We've created an environment where you're relying on someone else or this passive modality to do it. Now, passive modality is simply when an external force or device is used to apparently alter the structure of your tissue or get rid of a, inverted commas, a knot or tightness, where we know we can't physically change the structure of a tissue. We don't have the strength to do it in our hands. If that was the case, then every time you put a squat bar on your back, you'd be altering all the tissue in your shoulders. And if that was the case, you would never have tight traps. You'd never have the sensation of tightness in your traps or your lats, because this bar would be massaging that all the time. And that's where it's trying to change. It's not really, it's like a cultural thing. It's like static stretching. It's cultural to a lot of people, where they're doing it because they've seen it for so many years being done by people of high stature, or high following or high praise. And therefore they think, well, if they're doing it, Jesus, it has to be good. And obviously that's not specific to this industry. That happens in coaching and everything as well. Eat like this, you look like this kind of a situation. And that's my biggest issue is, and you still get people promoting this and well-known people promoting that if you do this, or if you get your massage, this is what's going to happen. You're going to increase blood flow. You're going to drain lymph nodes. You're going to, break up adhesions. These things that physically we can't actually do. And for a lot of time, it's a placebo effect. And yes, look, if placebo works, use it. Yeah. But don't make it a crutch. Don't make it that you have to get done every week because, oh, last Sunday's squat session was shit because I didn't get my massage last week. No, it isn't. That's not the case. Like, it's physically impossible. So we need to get around this. And if you're having to get massages all the time because of a pain or a tightness, whatever, clearly that's not the solution. Because if it's not going away, you haven't chosen the right solution. And at best passive modalities might help with a symptom, but it won't solve a problem. An issue, a pain in your knee when you surpass, say you can squat 250 as a single or a double in your training, and up till 200 you have no pain in your knee. But once you pass 200 kilograms, you now get pain in your knee, right? Going for a massage on your quad is not the cause, is not the solution to that. Because if that was the case and you get a pain all the time, if it was blatantly just that one muscle, and that's where that leads me on to then the same thing, that going to massage your quad or your glute in its entirety is not the problem for your pain. Like a weak muscle in inverted commas is what I'm hearing a lot, especially this week. I've heard a lot. Oh, I went to physio before, I got told an imbalance in my obliques, and that's why I have back pain. So, well, and how did he test the strength of your obliques on his plinth, on his table there in front of you? Like, what device did he use to measure your strength in that thing? How he can't. So how can he say that? Yeah. And this is where the whole passive thing comes in again. It's like, oh yeah, let me rub my thumb in your forearm there. Oh, that's tender. Oh shit. Okay, right. We need to massage that. That shouldn't be tender. Well, I can tell you now, if anyone listening to this gets your thumb and applies pressure into the middle of your forearm, I can tell you now, a lot of you are going to change your facial expression instantly. It doesn't mean there's a problem in your forearm. It's just a sensitive piece of tissue, you know. Yeah, so that's my kind of, I suppose, my take on it.
No, and I mean, like by and large, it completely makes sense. And I suppose, look, it's not to say that all physios are predatory or all.
Not at all, no.
It's not the case, but I think by and large, I would agree with you. Ultimately, I don't have much experience with this, but I have friends and people I coach that have gone to physios, and the answer was not treat the cause. It was, like you said, treat a symptom, treat.
Yeah.
And I think like this is where we've, I suppose, the balance between active and passive recoveries is, for, like you said, with those kind of placebo effects, by and large, if a massage, or I don't know, like cupping is probably a bad example. It's been banned in France in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
No more, since last year, actually, I think.
Say the end of 2021. The potential for these things to cause harm is low, but let's say from a performance standpoint, if we were to look at your stretching session and maybe the timing of your stretching session, because we know static stretching could decrease muscle tension, could have a negative effect on force output. We know if you're foam rolling before your session, you're potentially decreasing tension. No, that's
so static stretching is shown to, I suppose, to reduce the potential for muscle to output force, is what this study shows. So technically you make yourself weaker. Now, the thing is, look, it could be a scale, or we could be talking 0.5%. You're not necessarily physically going to actually experience it, but what's happening on the physiological level is what's happening. And going back to, I know about physios not being all the same, that I suppose there's also a level of education, and someone that's done a 12-week massage course is not necessarily the same understanding as someone that's done a 3-year or 4-year degree of something. So that's where there's it's not that the person that does massages is wrong. They're doing what they believe in and what they're taught, and there's nothing, you can't blame them for that. That's what they do, and that's what they enjoy, and that's fine. I would never tell them to stop doing that. It's just not what I do. So each their own. Once, against, you used a good phrase there, once you're not causing harm, I don't really have an issue. My issue is when you leave for a massage and you're bruised. I have an issue with that. And I had someone, I saw a post recently of someone, I'm not going to mention names or anything, but they had to put a thing, and they were saying, like, do your stretching or I'm going to have to do this to you. And they put a photo of someone, and their rectus spina were like almost purple after massage. And I was like, so explain to me the logic of causing trauma to resolve pain, where maybe I'm just too blinkered, but I can't see where the logic comes into that. Why would you cause pain in your relief of pain?
Yeah, but this is what's it called, scraping, isn't it?
Yeah, don't get me started. Yeah.
This is one dimension, just in terms of, like, see high-level bodybuilders getting this scraping done, and it just makes me fucking sweat, because it's a very, now, in terms of trauma, it's acute. It's causing probably some amount of surface level bruising, but even you said, like if you're still causing even very small
superficial
localized trauma at the superficial level, it's not. You can't be sitting there telling me that this is beneficial.
What I will tell you is some of their thought process is that by causing a small bit of trauma, they believe the body is going to start a new reparation process in that area. That's where a lot of their logic comes from. So then what happens? So like if you get a muscle tear, the body's going to react to it. So what they're doing is they're creating some sort of trauma, and they believe that the body will then start to reparation that area, and alongside whatever they might, if anything, prescribe afterwards, will then speed up the recovery of that tissue. That's their viewpoint, and that's what that's the viewpoint.
Interesting.
Yeah.
If I break my hand, then I should just chop off my hand.
Yeah, just exactly. Yeah, if it doesn't heal right, just break it again, and just make sure it does it the second time. That's sort of that is the, and I'm not trying to shit on people, but you need to be, if you're providing a service, you really need to make sure that the service you're providing, you fully understand, and that you can stand over it, that what you're doing is actually, the results are actually going to be X, Y, and Z. And not that just because you were told in college that this is the fact. It's the same thing as PTs. They're still being told that I was asked to help with potentially come up with a mobility section to a PT course in a community college here. And I had to go in and meet some of the PT students on varying ages and demographics completely. But yet they're still being told that they need to squat with feet shoulder width apart and femurs turned out at 15 degrees for every single client. And every single client you screen them doing an overhead squat. And when I asked them, could they do an overhead squat? They can't. I was like, excellent. So how do you point out when the client you're doing it is wrong when you don't know how to do it? And how do you know the femurs are turned out 15 degrees? Well, should you look at their leg? Sure, I could look at your quad. Sure, your rec fem could be aiming right and your femur could be aiming left. Like I can't physically see that. Do you know? And that's when you're teaching that to people and you told them that is gospel and that's what they have to write on their exam papers. But then they go out to the world and realize everything I've learned is fucking bull in reality, because there is no one size squat for anybody. There's a squat per person, not per gender or per age or per weight class, you know. So I just said to him after that one session, I said to him, I can't contribute to that course. I just can't, because I don't believe in it. I can't contribute it, but thanks for the invitation, you know.
Yeah, I've had a few fights with people over the use of FMS, all right. I think movement screens are, like, if you're still using the movement screen in 2022, I think by and large there's very little value in it.
Well, I'll tell you where the value comes in is you're finding problems that aren't there, so you can create solutions to problems that aren't there, which means you can create repeat business for problems that weren't there that you need to go look for. You know what I mean?
I've done FMS screens at county level, like with I suppose there were development county teams, like, but even just turning around, like someone, the lead S&C coach would turn around and be like, everyone's going to be a 2, no one's going to be a 1 here.
Yeah.
You're just wondering, you're like, are we really, really, really screening here for movement? And then it's like, what? Like you said, like we know there is no such thing as the perfect technique. There's more and less efficient technique. But
that's why I don't believe in screening per se, like especially from a coaching level and a PT level. If you want to get them to come in and squat, get them to a squat. Yeah. Watch them squat and then look if there's a problem there. Get them deadlifting, look if there's a problem with it. Don't look for a problem before they've done any movement, because what's normal external rotation to you, it mightn't be normal to me. You know, we get these things we're taught, you know, at your shoulder needs X amount of external rotation, or a range of, and that's normal. But like, what happens if you have much longer humerus, a much shallower, deeper shoulder socket? The bones themselves have more room to move as such. There's not as much limitation. Angles are going to change, but it doesn't mean it's normal or abnormal. Yeah. You know, and we adapt. We're all born. The way you're born, you adapt to whatever, to a degree, obviously, whatever is your body is structured. You adapt to that as you grow up. You know, there's no going now, oh, you know, I'm much stronger on my right hand than my left. Yeah, you're 40 years old and you're right-handed. That's why you're stronger on your right, you're more coordination, because you favored that arm. Don't now go trying adding weight to the left arm or strength to the left arm. That's not how it works. That's not your reason for your problem. That's how you've adapted over time. And that's where we need to come back to the whole, you adapt. Like I see some people doing, you know, a mixed grip. I think, Shane, you're mixed grip, Shane, are you? Are you on your deadlift? Yeah. Like mixed grip doesn't cause a muscle imbalance. Like it just doesn't. Like you didn't go, you know, you've done that over time. It's something that's happened over years. It doesn't cause muscle imbalance. I see people doing it and I see them some weeks and they've switched for a couple of reps. I'm like, why did you switch? Oh, to stop the imbalance. Well, okay, stop doing that.
Yeah. One of the ways I frame it to clients is like, if you're to look at like the degree of like of how your muscles change from just changing up that grip position, like you're not seeing any huge changes to like muscle length.
Really, no.
And then as well, if you factor in all the other pulling movements you're doing or pulling or pushing with the same grip.
Exactly. If you take percentage of that, as you say, the max grip versus everything else, it's minuscule. And you're doing the stronger position for you. Because if you switch, you are changing position, but you're now loading slightly different. And what we sometimes find in that situation is you see people sometimes do have bicep tears in deadlifts, right? And that's a lot of situations sometimes is when they're trying to curl the bar instead of keeping a dead straight arm. But you get people that then trying to switch a grip on a heavy load that they haven't conditioned to yet. And that is often when things go wrong. It's not that you were weak, whatever, you weren't conditioned to a certain position, but you just loaded it stupidly too quickly. And that's why I just stick with the way you train. The way you're going to compete is the way you train. Like, you know, if you squat low bar and you squat in heels, you train you're obviously you can have accessories, but you train your squat in those heels. You don't train flat and then go and comp in heels. So don't change your grip. You know what I mean? It's the same thing.
I think that's kind of an interesting segue there, TJ, into maybe a small bit on maybe if you want to come on with a couple of case studies here as well, but kind of maybe a couple of, I suppose I won't say common injuries, but maybe some things that you see, how you typically see problems arise once you've had that initial conversation. Maybe a small bit on like the pathology of injury, what you see contributes to injury in lifters when, like, I suppose for me anyway, when I'm speaking to people, common thing is that injuries are loosely the large increases in load, large increases in intensity without there being some acclimation to that load or intensity requirement. So
I suppose one of the biggest contributing factor, I believe, in one that's working, you know, you're working 40, 50 hours a week, you're sleeping. So with like back pain to me in a lot of situations is a red flag for lifestyle view first. So I want to know your sleep routine, your nutrition, your hydration, sodium, things like that. And now staying in my lane, I would like to know what your stress is like. So I can obviously get an idea of it listening to the way you talk and discussing your job and your life and stuff. I'm not going to tell you how to reduce your stress because I'm not qualified in that. I will recommend people maybe, but I can tell you now that there's a lot of people out there with back pain, and it's because everything outside the gym is the problem, not the gym itself. Okay.
You want to fix that non-specific lower back pain, leave your wife, leave your kids, leave your job.
Exactly. Yeah. Fly to Hawaii and lie on the beach for a week and it'll go away. No. And look, there are some things you can't control in your life. And I appreciate that. I have 2 kids. I know it's like having a family and stuff, but your lower back pain is not because you have weak glutes. It's not because you have a weak core. It's not because of all these wonderful things that people do and come up with. And the thing is, so as you know, I'm not that hands-on. I'm very about movement and resistance and strength, right? So anything I prescribe is going to be an added stressor on someone that's already got a shitload on their plate, right? And sometimes it might just be a case of reducing volume for a week or 2. But what I instill in people, I've had a lot of back pain these last few weeks in terms of clients. And one of the biggest things I prescribe at the moment is Jefferson Curls. And picking up things off the floor without bending your legs. Not because they're going to solve your back problem. What they're going to do is they're going to instill confidence in spinal flexion, okay? Because it's a human natural movement. And a lot of people are too concerned about keeping an inverted commas neutral spine or a straight back that they create this barrier of, if there's a slight bit of bend in my spine, that's why my back started hurting after that deadlift session. Whereas if you can build confidence in a human movement, which is spinal flexion, and there's no pain during that movement, don't fear it anymore. Yeah, it's similarly to that actually, and it's one thing me and Dav fight over all the time. I would have been someone now previously to powerlifting. I would have kind of trained a more hypertrophy style of training, but since I started powerlifting, whenever I was deadlifting, be it sumo or conventional, I was getting back pain. And that was mainly out of this kind of need in my head, at least, to maintain that neutral spine, minimize lumbar flexion, thoracic flexion, but squeezing the shit out of your extensors. In the last maybe year and a half, coming in
start position off the floor a little bit more flexed, like aggressive. And I've had no back pain since coming into that position. No, my deadlift's still shit, but
but what you're going to have now, and people listening going, you mean you actively slightly bend your back before you deadlift? Holy shit, you're going to die. You're going to snap your spine, but yet there's plenty of evidence to show us that a slightly fixed spine actually produces more force than a neutral one, safely. Like, and you're conditioned. Like I know a lifter, and there's probably people listening that might know what I'm talking about. She's been lifting for, I'd say 6 or 7 years, and she gets into this, what looks like a perfect start position. And then her hips come up and she completely flexes her spine. And she's never had back pain. She's never had a back injury. And she's lifting it, like we're talking 160 at that level. And that's how she lifts. And people are going, oh my God, she's going to hurt her back. Well, not really, because that's how she started. That's how she's trained ever since. Yes, it mightn't look pretty, but why would you change something that someone has been training like that and hasn't come to a plateau yet where maybe positions cause the issue? The only thing that's what will get her in the end is purely just position of where the bar is, and that is what will need to change. But in terms of safety in inverted commas, there's absolutely nothing wrong with what she does.
I think what's a great example of what you're saying there, if we do look at highest level of deadlifters at the moment, if we look at Jamal Browner pulls sumo with quite a high amount of thoracic flexion.
But thoracic, sorry to interrupt you there before I forget it, thoracic flexion in sumo is, to be honest, is probably pretty damn good thing if you can master it right.
Then I would say essentially,
you can get your arms longer, which means you can, your range of motion is less. It's
some degree of internal rotation in the shoulders. I think like advantage. And similarly, I suppose from a conventional point, if we look at John Hack, great, like really rounded, like does everything in terms of powerlifting, does everything wrong. Bar benches with a relatively narrower grip and pulls conventional with a pretty flex spine. And then if you look at other, like the point is, I suppose, is that, like you said earlier, to me anyway, at least from a technique perspective, is when you have this kind of idea that there's a perfect technique or a box to fit everyone into, if all you have is a hammer, everything becomes in that point, put a lazy old fucking metaphor on it. But
if you talk about a case study, you talk about back pain. I had a client into me just before Christmas. He's an active member of the French Air Force, and he just happens to be seeing someone in Ireland. So he comes across on his weekend off once every whatever the 6 weeks, 2 months, and he'd been referred to me. So he booked into me and he came into me, and lower back pain was the complaint. Now this guy, for want of a better phrase, is built like a brick shithouse, right? He's like 6'3", tall, dark, handsome, ripped to shreds, strong as an ox. Weakness is not going to be this man's problem for his back pain, right? So anyway, chatting and whatnot and listening to him and talking to him. And I said to him, when did you first notice this? He said, I can tell you exactly when it happened. Now, when someone tells me they can remember exactly when it happened, fear is the first thing that triggers into my mind, right? Okay. And that people may say jump to conclusions, but anyway, so I was like, right, okay, tell me about it. So he said, well, he was doing a drill where they had to pick up a heavy box, throw it out of the plane, and then jump out afterwards and keep an eye on the box. So he noticed as soon as he picked up the box, he felt something in his back. He threw it out anyway, and the green light went off on the plane, and he had no option but he had to jump. So he did his dive and whatever, and that was fine. And ever since then, he's had this back pain. So I was like, right, okay, interesting. And it's basically anytime he went into flexion, he was just no, right? So I was like, right. So got him to stand up, and I was like, right, touch your toes to me there. And he tried, and I'd say he was about a foot to a foot and a half from his feet, right? And he was like, it's sore, I can't do it anymore. I was like, fair enough, okay. So I brought him out so in the clinic, I have a consultant and treatment room, and they have like a room outside with all the equipment and stuff like that. So I brought him out, and I got him to do 2 or 3 completely random things, right? Just because I wanted to distract him. Completely random things for his hips, and just do random things I knew wouldn't have any impact at all, but I just wanted to clear his brain for a second from that. Then what I do is I had a wooden dowel we're going to do similar to a Jefferson curl, but what I did was I kept talking to him, right? So I didn't give him the chance to think. So I said to him, right, hold the stick against your legs. I want you to exhale, and I want you to rub that stick on your legs all the way down to your knees or your ankles, right? But keep it in contact with your legs the whole time. And I want you to exhale on the way down and inhale on the way up. But I kept repeating, yeah, perfect, yeah, keep touching, keep breathing, yeah. I didn't stop for a second, and he kept doing it. Within about 6 reps, he was touching the floor, right? The bar was literally on the floor. And got him to another few more reps, and he stood up, and I said nothing. I just waited, and he looked at me, and he just grinned, because he just realized he could touch the floor with absolutely no pain when he didn't think about it. So straight away afterwards, I said, right, so what do you think the problem is? And he thought it had to do with the exercise again before. I was like, nope, not at all. There is nothing wrong with your back. It's your body just is not comfortable with spinal flexion because of what happened. It's just fear that you anticipating this pain that actually, yes, it's there for you, but physically there's no trauma or damage. So obviously I did a few checks and sees things and noticed that like he moves perfectly fine. I'm not going to go look for a change in his internal rotation, because if this man's walking fine, nothing wrong with him. It's only when he goes to bend forward. So straight away afterwards, right, touch the ground. Boom, touch the ground, no problem, nothing there. Right. See you later. Now, it's not always that simple, but that is how much fear can impact people in terms of pain. And that's why if you can instill confidence in a movement, you are going to, I will almost put my head on a block, you're going to reduce the pain value straight away.
Yeah, I think it's a very common thing though, isn't it? Like once people kind of have an injury like that, like they picked up a box, like
100%.
Any kind of lower body stuff is like off the table. Like it's like, first of all, that didn't cause the injury for you, but that way to kind of getting better is going to be exposing yourself to like load again eventually.
100%.
And like trying to stay away from it completely is going to be a net negative, because you're going to get weaker over time then.
Yes.
And more likely to have more pain, and also you're afraid to move.
Yeah, so that's it. And that's like people, like if you need to, the anticipation of pain will bring pain. Like it's almost guaranteed. And I know there's some people that argue with me, but you can see it in people. You can watch the way people move, and that's why I think I would class relatively successful online, is because I can see how people are moving, and listening to them talk, I can tell how much pain is involved, or fear, or anticipation of said pain. So what we can do is we can still get them to bend their knee, but just put their body in a different position. So if the pain is when you squat, what happens if you were to do a lunge? Is the same pain there? No. Okay, so let's not squat for a couple of days, but let's work all around that same function of the knee that isn't painful for now, because we take this, forget about squat for a day or two, and let's just get moving around it first. And it also depends who you're dealing with. Like I have one of the IPF guys contact me during the week where he's got pec strain, but to a degree it's a pec strain, but he couldn't bench 30 kgs on the day it happened afterwards because the pain was just too much. So I literally have him loading that pec within pain, where I've hit a target of no more than 5 out of 10 pain, where 30 kg bench press was 10 out of 10. Last night, he contacted me on, I think it was Sunday last week, and I got back to him on I think it was the Monday, and he implemented what I'd suggested to him on the Tuesday. And last night he hit a 120 single bench with a 4 out of 10 pain, whereas 4 or 5 days ago he couldn't do 30 kgs without 10 out of 10. But I have him loading that pec under a bit of pain, but we're just building a bit of tolerance into it. And that's how I treat a tear or strain anyway, is load it straight away. There's no rest and do nothing. Build tolerance straight away. The longer you leave it, the harder it's going to be, or longer it's going to take you to build that tolerance again. Because you can maintain that pain of 3 or 4 out of 10 and keep going, increasing the weight and the volume while the pain remains the same, you're getting progress. Until we get to the point where we need to be strength-wise, and now the pain will start reducing more. So that's where I'm not, I wouldn't be the type to say to someone, right, because he would say to me, right, so can I not bench for like a week or two? Fuck no, because how do we know if it's any better if you're not going to test it? Yeah. You're not going to cause any more injury. And that's where we also need to change that mindset that, well, I'm injured, if I press more, I'm going to injure it more. It's actually unlikely. Like the injury's already happened. the chance of you making it worse is only if you do something completely and utterly retarded. Like if a 120 hurts you and you go and try and do 160 on the bar, well then, yeah, you deserve to hurt it more. But like if you go back to the 120 again, the odds are it's going to be probably the same amount of pain, maybe less or more, but the damage isn't more. It's very hard to cause actual damage by training. And once the pain is there, that technically, in inverted commas, if there is trauma as such, it's already done. So you're not going to make it worse per se.
Mm. Would you say in those kind of scenarios though as well, trying to introduce that person to greater movement variety can help as well? Because I think, especially like, you know, we're kind of talking about powerlifters now, but like we can be quite narrow-minded or kind of one-dimensional at times, and if we're not doing the big three, we kind of takes away a little bit of our like identity as well.
Yes.
So then kind of shifting the focus towards other kind of movements, some even variations that they continue to progress and get stronger in, while kind of keeping in that lift that maybe they're a little bit apprehensive about. Probably helped with the recovery process.
Yeah. So what I try to explain to people in terms of their mindsets is that, look, so yeah, okay, if you squat, you know, your hip hurts, your knee hurts, whatever, or something sore, but we can still train all the relevant tissue without pain, and as you say, in alternative options. So what you need to understand, you're not going to lose strength in that movement. Like that's the biggest fear in a powerlifter is losing strength, right? But in essence, that's for the vast majority. The ability to either not train or lose strength are the two biggest fears when a powerlifter get injured, right? So yes, you can't do a comp squat, but you can do, sometimes SSB works fine, or like I say, split squats, lunges, leg press, hack squat. Sometimes you can do everything else by that one movement. So you cannot physically lose strength in that movement because you can still train absolutely every tissue involved in it, with intent and with volume and intensity. So then there shouldn't be a fear. The fear factor of getting weaker should be gone. And now all you're going to do is, it's just a movement pattern you just need to refresh again, which just means you just start with a very slightly lesser load the first time you go back, because generally it's anticipation again. So then that's when sometimes, again, it depends on the individual. Some people obviously don't have the same fear factor as others. So it has to be tailored to that person, obviously. But someone like say you guys. So for instance, you can't, if you squatted just above parallel, fine. Once you're below parallel, the pain was there. Excellent. From now on, we're going to squat to that point where the pain is, so that for the vast majority, 90% of the movement is still maintained with volume and strength. And then we're going to train around that for now. And then in a week's time, we're going to reduce that distance by an inch or two, and we're going to train that for 2 or 3 sessions. Then we're going to reduce by another inch or two. All we're looking for now is range. Strength's not going to change. And sometimes that's all that's needed to repair it. Like what we need to understand is pain doesn't mean damage. So it doesn't mean that there's tissue damage. It doesn't mean that we have to go for an MRI, go for a scan, get 25 massage sessions. That is not necessarily the issue. And what I'm happy to admit is a lot of physical therapy is educational guessing. Okay. You cannot physically see what's going on inside. I can only see what I can see externally, how I see you move from the outside, and what you describe to me. And I take that information based on my knowledge and of course my experience in other cases, and I come up with what I believe is going to help you. And will it work? There's nothing guaranteed, but that's why when I do online, I do it's a 4-week block. It's not a once-off consultation. It's a 4-week block, and that's it, because I need to make sure I'm 100% certain after week 1, I need to make 100% certain I'm on the right path, that this is going to be the right thing for you. And then if I need to make changes, I can make changes, and then we go through the week. So that's why I do 2 check-ins a week, where normal coaching is probably 1. I do 2 because I want to react quicker. I don't want to waste a week of information, good, bad, or indifferent. And what I sometimes say to people, and it sounds a bit facetious, but I don't care if what I give you makes you better, worse, or indifferent at the start, because whatever happens, it gives me more information.
Yeah.
So, and if someone can guarantee, there's very few, I do guarantee sometimes, like sometimes I know by listening to someone, seeing them move or knowing about them, I tell you now, I guarantee you I'll have you back in X amount of time. But I don't do that very often. And the people, I'm sure the people, some of them will listen to this, they're the ones I know I've guaranteed, and I have done it because I knew from the start what the problem was and how to resolve it. Sometimes it isn't that easy. Sometimes there are people where it might be 2 blocks. But my aim is to get you done and dusted by the end of the 4 weeks, and you left off with a weaning plan as such, because I don't think rehab is forever. I think it's done until the problem's solved, the strength is back, the movement's 100%, the mindset's 100%. You're not going to get anything more after that. So there's no point in carrying it on.
Exactly. And I suppose after much of training is prehab forevermore.
This is it, like, and look, volume, as you said about sometimes what causes it, like it is, as a recovery is my biggest concern with a lot of people, especially coming during peaks and stuff with intensity and that. But it's some injuries, they just happen. Like, I just cannot give you a reason as to why. And that does frustrate some people. All I can say to is, right, so you're having an issue when you have an issue shoulder when you bench press. That's what we're looking at. We're not looking at what label it is. What is it? Is it some sort of, restriction, or is it some sort of whatever terminology people want to use, bursitis or whatever. I don't use labels on anyone, like, because people become their labels. They go into Google, and then Google will tell you need to get a scan, need to be surgery, and then you're going to die. Like, that's just how Google works. So, like, don't, that's why I don't give labels, because a lot of labels are so broad. Pain in the heel of your foot. Oh yeah, it's plantar fasciitis. All right, what does that mean? It means your plantar is inflamed. Excellent. Now what? Impingement. Do you realize your shoulder impinges when you do most movements anyway? There's impingement, inverted commas, during a lot of shoulder exercises we do. Don't cause pain. Impingement doesn't cause the pain per se. So yeah, terminology is, and what we say to people is the words used can make or break someone in a lot of situations. Again, I have one of the masters, IPF girls, came about a year and a half ago. She was in the north, and she went to the physio for shoulder pain, and you'd given her some stuff to do. She did it, and there wasn't much improvement in however long time, 2 weeks. So she went back to him, and the stuff he'd given originally seemed quite external rotation based movements, which is fine. Okay. She went back because there was no improvements. The second time, he diagnosed her with what you call a C8 dermatome. Okay, so what that basically means is C8 nerve runs from your cervical spine. So C7 to T1, it runs into the arm as such, right? We'll keep it simple. What it does, it innervates the skin of the shoulder, just the skin, none of the muscle or tissue underneath the shoulder, right? So he told her that he thinks she has this sort of potentially some sort of a structural issue, a bulge in the vertebra in the cervical spine. It's impinging the C8 nerve, and it's causing the pain in the shoulder. This is what you're telling me on the phone. We're telling us, right? Okay, fair enough. That's physically impossible, but go on. So he told her that she could no more exercise that involved traction of shoulders or neck. So no pulling movements at all. This is someone who's represented Ireland in both Worlds and Euros at Masters level. You're not telling them that they can't deadlift or pull anything anymore ever again, without any physical proof of a scan or anything. This is what you're telling by lying on my table, what you can feel, right? Another one of these people with that superpower of X-ray vision. And so anyway, she described, after the phone call went on for the initial phone call, 45 minutes an hour. And I was like, right. I was like, so I'm telling you now, you can go deadlift tomorrow. I was like, that is not your problem. It cannot be your problem. Based on what you explained to me and what he said, it's absolutely, he's got 1-on-1 and drawn 25. And within 2 weeks, she couldn't bench at the stage because the pain was too much. 2 weeks, benching back to normal, not a bother. All we did was get her moving that shoulder in various directions, using a lot of the scapula as a guide. And all I did was just get some, and for want of a better phrase, harmonious moving of that joint. And that's really it. Like, and I could tell where she was talking, all it was screaming to me was scapula, scapula, scapula. There was nothing about her neck. Like, it was just such a, and like, she was in tears on the phone to me when she was telling me this. And I was like, you can't say that to someone. Like, you need to be held accountable for what you say to people. The terminology you use. Don't tell someone they can't do something for fear of, like, you're telling someone their neck is now their cervical neck is now like a dangerous area, and like any pulling could like almost paralyze them. Like, you can't tell someone that, like, it's such bullshit, and that then creates fear completely. And every time she goes to pull a deadlift, she's going to be thinking of her neck. And like, as you said, Shane, about the back, everything lower body, everything becomes fear, because we need our back for everything. Back pain can affect literally every movement you do. So there's that one thing that becomes very hypersensitive and very conscious of, that, oh shit, my back's sore. If I go to pick up that or stretch for that or reach up for this, I'm going to have a sore back. Whereas if you have an elbow pain, you kind of ignore it for a lot longer and you kind of work around it. But yet when it's something more, what we have in inverted commas important, like our back, we all of a sudden stop doing everything, you know, and that's why people come to me, oh, I've been told I can't train lower body because I have knee pain. Well, you have knee pain in your right knee. What's wrong with your fucking left knee? You know, does it hurt when you do hamstring curls? No, fucking do hamstring curls. Do you know what I mean? Like, stop looking at what you can't do. Look what you can do. Be blessed that you can still do stuff. You're not in a full body cast. Like, be blessed that you can still train other movements. And believe it or not, training all around it you might just come back to it later and realize there's no pain there at all. You know, things do fix themselves over time as well. When people come to me sometimes with like, oh, I felt this yesterday during training, you know, and I'm like, all right, grand, ring me next week. Like, give it a week. Like, why would I can't consciously take your money today for something that happened yesterday when I know the odds are in a week it's going to be fine itself. You don't need 4 weeks of my time and your money, you know? But look, everyone's different.
Yeah. Is there anything else there, Sharon, you kind of wanted to cover or go over? I think we kind of...
Yeah, I was just going to say, it really does help to have that person there, though, to give you those reassuring words. Like, obviously, it can go one or two ways. It can go towards the kind of fear-based approach by some people, and then more of the kind of positive-based approach by the likes of yourself. And even like, I've had clients like hurt themselves during training, and like usually my response is, all right, well, maybe we'll not do that movement for like this week, get back to it next week, we'll just get you on machines or something like that. It'll be okay. Like, as you mentioned already, like powerlifting or just weight training in general is pretty safe. Like
injury rates are nothing. Like, it's probably one of the safest things given the loads and the volume we do. It's probably one of the safest sports there is, you know. Like, it's just the older generation that are only, you know, they're just not succumb to, you know, picking up heavy things is bad for your back. It's that generation, but that's getting better obviously as we get as the younger generation come up. But yeah, it's that, like, as I say to people, you don't have to come to me. If you don't like the way I work, that's fine. But if you want, I will recommend people around Ireland, or if you want to go online around other parts of the world, that can help you as well. If you don't like me, or you've heard bad things about me, or the case is, I'll still recommend you to someone else. That's no problem at all. I'll never not do that because I'm afraid of losing business. That's not what I'm about, you know. And if you want to see someone in person, I'm too far in Galway, tell me, and I'll tell you where around the country there is someone I would recommend and put my faith in. Because no more than you know yourselves in coaching and in any industry, there's a lot of bad. And just because they're busy 7 days a week and they have 2 million followers doesn't mean that they're the best out there, you know?
Definitely.
Yeah, no, completely agree. Well, it's good that we do have people like yourself who are kind of paving the way for more like evidence-based practitioners.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So I think that pretty much wraps everything up. TJ, we're going to give you an opportunity here to plug yourself if you haven't been doing that already for like the last hour. Look, tell people where they can find you.
So you can find me mainly on Instagram at TJ Painfree, and you can book free calls and stuff like that through the link in the bio. Keep an eye out for workshops. I have workshops that I do around the country, and I do pop-up clinics as well, where I come to gyms and spend an hour with people either going through movement or pain or whatever the case is, whatever relates anything within my skill set. And I work online and I'm based in Galway if you want to see me in person.
Unbelievable. Thank you very much for coming onto the podcast today.
Thanks for having me, lads.
Very much appreciated.
Sorry again, TJ, for me being the ever elusive figure I am.
You're okay. You're okay.
Anyway. I was like our conversations, because you just echo back all the things that I think. So it's nice having a bit of confirmation bias there.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's trying not to like. There's a lot of people I don't follow that other people do follow. But it's more because what they post would probably raise my blood pressure more than anything else. And it's not that I only follow people I agree with. I follow people I don't agree with, because I think you need to see both sides of everything. You can't just plug what you do and not accept what others believe in. as much as it's hard sometimes, but yeah.
I suppose with that kind of stuff, it does come back to trying to educate people on the principles as opposed to the methods. Because usually the method always comes back to the principle, and usually the methods can be kind of shitty.
Yeah, and that's why I love my workshops. I fucking love them because I love educating people on it. More than I do actually. Like I love the whole thing altogether, but I love educating people and showing them how they can improve things and make things quicker, I suppose, more efficient in their training and their warm-ups and all that kind of stuff, and stop doing shit they don't need to do anymore because it doesn't do what they thought it did,
Yeah. Fact.
Thanks so much.
No problem, lads.
Hopefully we can get you on again in the not so distant future when you.
More than welcome.
Hopefully neither of us have been declined by that time. All right, I'll round out the podcast. So thank you very much for listening. As always, I think on Spotify now you can leave a rating and a review. So if you want to do that there, that'd be very much appreciated. Same on iTunes. Share the podcast on your Instagram story, that kind of stuff. All right. So thank you very much. We will see you in the next one, and have a great week. What is up, people? Thank you very much for listening to another episode of the podcast. Just a quick announcement. Myself and Lawrence do have coaching spaces available. So if you're looking to get into powerlifting, if you're looking to become the strongest version of yourself, or achieve the lean physique that you've always been looking for, or even if it's just to improve your nutrition so you can help with your sports performance or gain some healthy habits, we are there to help. So if you want to get in contact with us, you can get in contact through our emails or our Instagram, which are in the description below, and we look forward to helping you achieve your goals.